We've already heard from Marco Rubio, so this gives him some pause as to whether Donald Trump sort of fuels these sort of things and whether he could beckon as the party's nominee. What does Governor John Kasich think? This is his state, after all. 66 delegates up for grabs in just a couple of days. The good governor joins us right now. Governor Kasich, good to have you.
Thanks, Neil.
What did you think of what happened last night?
Well, I didn't see it until I got back to my hotel room, and, you know, frankly, Donald has created a very toxic environment, and it's really in dividing people, which I have been saying since the third debate. And,
How did he create it?
Dividing people. Look, I'm a guy that has unified this state. I mean, we have fixed many problems here, including the issue of jobs, working with local communities, working with the legislature. We fixed a lot of things in Cleveland, particularly the Cleveland schools, working with unions, believe it or not, that said that we need reform, with the mayor, who is a Democrat, and the legislature, which is conservative, to bring people together. And you got to remember, Neil, my entire campaign has been unwaveringly positive. And I stand on that stage sometime, I did, and I couldn't believe some of the things that I heard, or some of the things that I heard on the campaign trail. And as you know, some people urged me to go negative, and I just simply wouldn't do it. And now in the last debate, we saw real progress to a discussion of issues. And that's where we ought to be, because we're not going to fix these problems in our country by dividing people. And, you know, last night was, you know, some of his supporters and probably some people who absolutely came seeking confrontation.
We've already seen that, right, Governor? But we've seen Black Lives Matter crowds showing up at Sanders events. In fact, they stormed the stage in his event, at Hillary Clinton events. So this is not unique to Mr. Trump, right?
Well, I don't disagree that it could really affect all of us if people go with an agenda of disruption. But, you know, when you're spending your time criticizing people, and look, Neil, I tell you this, I went to New Hampshire and I learned that I could walk into a room with 100 people and give them hope and show them a path to success, or I could walk into a room with 100 people and really get them depressed by dividing them. And I've chosen to raise the bar, because I don't have any interest in running a personal negative campaign. And I think a lot of things that have been said have created a toxic environment.
Well,
but that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there
about that environment, sir, that it makes him think twice now as to whether he could support him as the party's nominee. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I said at the last debate that sometimes he makes it very difficult. I said it with sort of a smile. Yeah, it brings to mind as to what kind of a leader he would be. And I hope he'll knock this off and stop trying to divide us. And but, you know, my feeling is you don't beat Donald by wrestling in the mud with him. You have to have a stronger vision, and you have to give people hope. And I think as a result of that, Neil, I'm beginning to see a significant rise all across this country, because people cheer when you say, I'm not going to get into the mud. You know, records are fair game. What I'm saying here today about his creating a toxic environment is real. And he needs to stop it. He should know better than that. And as a leader of Ohio, where we've seen significant economic gain, where we saw, as you know, very tough court decisions that could have resulted in a split Ohio, we're unified in this state. We don't have all of our problems solved. But I've learned over the course of being the governor and being in public life that our job is to lift people, to give them a path towards solving problems, not to drive them into the ditch.
Well, you know, you have made dramatic progress, depending on the polls, certainly surging in Ohio. It might produce a win for you on Tuesday. You said that you got to win to stay relevant and all that. But having said that, Donald Trump says you're not all that much of your record isn't what it's touted to be. Here's what he was saying about you just this morning.
The problem with Kasich is that he's very weak on illegal immigration, and that's why I think he's going to lose Ohio. He's very weak on illegal immigration. He's very, very weak on trade. And, you know, Ohio is only doing okay because of oil. They struck oil. He got lucky.
You got lucky. What do you think of that?
Neil, I'm not going to, you know, wallow in the mud, but let me just tell you, we're up over 400,000 jobs in Ohio. Our wages are growing faster than the national average. I've cut taxes by more than any governor in America. Our credit is strong, our pensions are strong, and we're running a $2 billion surplus coming back from an $8 billion deficit. We not only have some energy, which is nascent, but we also just found out we have our third Amazon investment in this state. We are strong in financial services, medical device development. We have the great Cleveland Clinic here in Ohio. We are across the board diversified.
Right.
And yesterday, by the way, Neil, I stood in a plant where a Chinese investor has invested $500 million and created over 1,000 jobs in an abandoned auto plant in Ohio. Give me a break. Okay.
All right, so you don't quite agree with Donald Trump on that. Let me end by asking you about your role. Whether or not you win Tuesday, you are still the governor of Ohio. You will be for the Cleveland convention this summer. And there's added angst, as I'm sure you're aware, Governor. Will Cleveland be looking at another Chicago situation? Are you taking any extra steps to keep the peace, to make sure it doesn't erupt into something nasty? What are you doing?
Well, of course we will, Neil. We handle all situations as best we can, and we plan and we prepare, and that's July, and this is now March. So, yeah, of course our people plan. Our folks have been involved in in anticipating challenges, and they've handled themselves well. We have people trained to handle a host of activities, and we'll try to stay ahead of it. But I will tell you is everything in the world can't be anticipated, but we do the best that we can in doing that. And secondly, don't be surprised. First of all, I'm going to win Ohio, Neil, with the help of these Republicans who are going to reward me for the job that I've done, for the team that I've put together. And secondly, don't be surprised if I go to that convention with more delegate strength than anybody else. We still have a long way to go with half the delegates still to be chosen, about 1,000. So
all right,
fasten your seatbelt, Neil.
As always, thank you very, very much, Governor Kasich. Good chatting with you.
Thank you, Neil.